Welcome back to All Yankees Talk. I'm Delilah Bork.
I'm Jordan Lorenz.
Let's get into it. We've had our first three spring training games as of today. Today's Monday, February 23rd.
So let's see. We just had, as we finished recording, 6-2 win over the Pittsburgh Pirates. It
Right?
was a 4-run second inning. Kind of a slow start for the Yankees overall in spring training. Lost 2-0 the first game, but then they just exploded with that 20-run game. So overall, they're 2-2 right now. Coming off a loss to the Mets, they were able to respond with this win. Again, we're going to say it time and time again. Spring training wins and losses don't matter. It doesn't, this team could go 0 I think there's like 30 something spring training games. They could win. These two could be their only wins of the 32, and you don't have to overreact. It's going to be fine. It's good to see wins, but it's more important to see players developing and pitchers doing well. And all of those little things are far more important than the wins and losses. And we're going to talk about some winners and losers from the first couple of games here. So I'm really excited for this. And Delilah, I wanted to start with one of the winners who obviously is going to make this list with ease, Aaron Judge in his 2 home run game.
Absolutely. I mean, like you said, it's not like we can look at the win-loss total over spring training and panic and freak out. I think anyone likes to panic and freak out.
Yeah.
Baseball fans are made for it. But that 20-run game on, I believe it was Saturday,
Mhm.
absolutely crazy. And it's fitting that it was Aaron Judge's first spring training game because ultimately the guy can just hit crazy home runs. Whether it's spring training, maybe some haters I think would say not so much in the postseason, but he does hit them in the postseason, and he has hit 60 in the regular season before, which is just insane. So I agree with you that Judge is an absolute spring training winner, especially for someone who is in short order going to be departing spring training to play in the World Baseball Classic.
Yeah, so they got him in a pair of games, the 21st and 22nd. 22nd didn't get a hit, but he drew 2 walks. So, I mean, that's still pretty good. 0 for 1 with a pair of walks. And I mean, if they're afraid of you in spring training, you can only imagine what's going to happen in the regular season. So, 2 for 3, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs in that Saturday game. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better debut from him. First at bat, home run. Like, it's outer worldly at this point. Like, it's really one of those things where you know what you're getting with him, but still he just blows your mind every single time, which obviously is a really great thing. But he's one of our winners. We got a few others we're going to get to. I did want to mention Ben Rice. So Rice
Mhm.
debuted today. I was a part of the win over Pittsburgh, and he went 2 for 3, had a pair of RBIs and a walk as well. So I think Rice, interesting that they put him in as the DH in this game today, but like, it's spring training. They're just trying to get him some at bats, and he did really well in his first showing.
Yeah. I mean, they had Rice in at DH for a good at least couple months last year because Giancarlo Stanton was injured and they wanted Rice's bat in the lineup, and they obviously would have Goldschmidt in at first and Wells in at catcher. But I think Rice is not only an incredible player, but he has a big ceiling. I think that we haven't even seen what he can do. He obviously hit really well at DH. I think that he plays great first base. I think he's a good catcher. I think he's a very competent outfielder. So he's one of those guys that they can slot in almost, I mean, preferably at first, but I think almost anywhere where they need him. I think that Ben Rice would not only step up and sort of like I think any player says, I'll play at any position because why wouldn't you? But I think that Rice is the kind of player who can play at any position and hit well and field well. And I think that this was a great showing for what we're going to see from him, hopefully for a good long time. I mean, he is one of the best homegrown Yankees prospects since Judge. And I think that he will be a huge asset for the Yankees this season and even more so in years to come.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the versatility is what you always talk about with a guy like him because especially when they bring back Paul Goldschmidt for another year, they know they have that lefty righty. They can do whatever they want. If they need Rice in the lineup, they can still put him in as a DH. If they need Goldschmidt in the lineup, they can put, or I've kind of said it backwards, but if they need Goldschmidt in the lineup, they can play him at first and put Rice at DH. But they can move him all around in spring training to get just immediately a pair of hits right away. I know some Yankees fans were a little concerned that it took him 3 games to make his debut, but he was still fine. And those are the two big hitters I wanted to talk about. There hasn't really been prospect wise anyone that's done like tremendous things. We'll get to Spencer Jones in a little bit, but like as for George Lombard or a guy like that, just pretty quiet so far. So we're just going to kind of pass on those type of guys for now. But a couple of pitchers I wanted to talk about in the first spring training game, which we did preview on our first episode. Check that one out if you haven't already. February 20th was a big one there for Elmer Rodriguez. Obviously made his debut. It was Legraje and Rodriguez, the two guys who we knew were pitching these first two games, and Rodriguez won the battle. If you want to talk about like head to head, who's looking better, granted, it's their first start. It's spring training. We're going to say this time and time again for the next month. Rodriguez looked really good, though. 3 innings pitched, gave up 3 hits, got a strikeout as well. So good to get that under his system. But overall, I think he did very, very well and has been probably the most impressive starting pitcher so far the Yankees have had. Granted, all of these guys are only throwing 2 or 3 innings, but still.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly think that it will come down to, for those guys, what happens later in the season. I see maybe a call up in July or August, like we talked about last episode, very similar to Schlittler. But yeah, I think great. It must feel great to have that sort of inning. Yeah, you gave up or outing rather. Yeah, you gave up 3 hits, but you also had a strikeout. It's your first ever spring training game. They're also putting up some of their main guys. And certainly after a winter or, some time in the double or even triple A, it feels a little bit different to be throwing against those major league hitters. So I think that it is a great start. I'm really excited to see where they can go.
Yeah, I think those two in particular are going to be the ones to watch throughout spring. Obviously, is that's kind of the main thing we were talking about. I did a piece for Yankees on a side today about kind of the some of the top prospects and when we'll see them make their major league debuts. Obviously, it's all speculation, it's all a guessing game at this point. But like we said in the first episode, those two are going to be key pieces to this rotation or bullpen come later in the year. But honorable mention for biggest winner was Carson Coleman, who struck out all 3 batters he faced in that game on the 20th. But then the next day, just a little random pitcher I wanted to get in here because you got to give people credit that aren't always going to be top guys in this rotation, top guys in the bullpen, could be minor leaguers for the whole year. Who knows? But Brock Selvage, 2 innings pitched, struck out 4 batters and only walked 1 on the 21st. But just wanted to give him a little shout out, Delilah. I didn't know if you had anything to add about him.
Yeah, not in particular, but again, I think four strikeouts, that's gotta feel great. Like, good for him. Excited to see what else he can do. And on sort of a broader scale, excited to see the different lineups, the different pitchers who we'll see from the Yankees in spring training, because ultimately, come come opening day, I think that we sort of know what to expect, unless something crazy happens during spring training. I feel like we have a pretty good idea of who's going to be in the lineup opening day. So seeing these lineups and these pitchers, even if it's guys that as a fan or even as a journalist, you're like, I've never even heard of this guy before. It's exciting to see 4 strikeouts. It's exciting to see what's coming down the pipeline.
And obviously, World Baseball Classic could throw in a wrench in some couple of things too. You never know what could happen with a freak injury or literally anything that could
Totally.
happen in that. But we'll get back to some pitchers in a little bit. I know we're going to talk about this squad's relievers and where things stand with that. But 2 losers I wanted to mention. You never really want to be in this category. And the pitcher I have mentioned is not a horrible outing or anything like that. But the hitter I have in here has been pretty bad, to say the very least. Outfielder Duke Ellis, he has struggled in seemingly every game he's played in. He was one of the 2 I was kind of high on coming into spring training. Again, he's a little bit older. He's another left-handed outfield bat, which the Yankees don't need any more of at this point in time. But still, when you've got a guy with a high OPS in the minors, you like to see what they're able to do in spring. And Ellis hasn't had it at all so far. He started in that first game, 0 for 2 pair of strikeouts. The next day, remember, Yankees put up 20 runs against the Detroit Tigers. Ellis was 0 for 2 with a strikeout, and out of the 16 or 18 batters to step up to the plate in this game, Ellis was the only one to not get on base. So, I mean, guys were drawing walks, guys were getting hits. Ellis was just 0 for 2 with the strikeout. Pretty bad when you're the only one of 18. That's not a good percentage to be in. And then today in the game against the Pirates, 0 for 1, struck out in the only at bat. So it's been a rough start. This isn't a guy the Yankees probably are going to have much of on their main roster, if at all. But still, for an outfielder, I mean, Spencer Jones is the main guy you're looking at, and he's obviously a lot younger than Ellis. But still, like, this is the type of guy where if you don't have a good spring, like, you might be DFA'd, and this could be the only time we ever talk about him.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Ellis, I'm thinking, Okay, how much does it cost to hire movers? Because I think that they end up trading him, which is okay. I think that the Yankees are pretty good at trying to keep their best guys. You know, they haven't traded Jones. They, I think, won't trade Lombard. Their top pitchers, but once you drop back a little bit further in the prospect rankings, and maybe you're not having as much success in spring training as you did previously in the minors, or who knows where he'll go once regular season play begins, and maybe they're not playing with as many major league hitters and batters, or pitchers. But I think that if his performance continues this way, he's unfortunately going to be trade fodder. I wouldn't be surprised if hear about a big trade and it's like, oh, and the Yankees have sent this guy too. That seems like the most likely scenario for him, if not being DFA'd.
I mean, he's 28 years old and doesn't have a lot of big league experience. He played 8 games with the White Sox in 2024, came over to the Yankees, played 3 games with them. He has 1 big league hit in his 11 big league at bats. So, certainly not a proven big league guy, but just something to talk about. Like, if you want to look at guys who are performing and not performing, Ellis is certainly on the ladder of that list. So, our last quote unquote loser, Bradley Hanner from the Yankees, obviously took the only loss that they had, or the first loss, I should say, that they had. And again, this was a 2-0 game. So it's really not that big of a deal at the end of the day, but you never want to be the first pitcher of the year to get a loss against you. And yes, it's spring training, but still a loss is a loss. And that's something that can weigh with the guy for a little bit. But I think the biggest key here was he gave up a home run to Pete Alonso, and it was in the 6th inning. So one, why is Alonso still playing in the 6th inning? Two, I mean, yeah, you gave up a home run to Pete Alonso. So it goes both ways.
Yeah, I mean, I would at least try to remember I gave up the home run to Pete Alonso and not to, you know,
Luke Ellis.
yeah, exactly, not to a guy like Duke Ellis. But I think it's always tough, even knowing this is just spring training, this is just one game. Even in the regular season, it's just one game out of 162. Seeing the notification on your phone or watching the game and watching a loss is just brutal. And it's even more brutal for the players. So I think that was a tough one for him. Hopefully he'll get some more reps in where he can chalk up a win.
Yeah, and I mean, it's on the offense too, right? You go scoreless in your first game, but it was the first game back in months. So, not the end of the world, but I did think that was worth including on the quote unquote losers list. Certainly is. If you want to include a hitter, you want to include a pitcher as well. And that's the one we kind of went with, but I think he's going to be just fine and everything will be okay. So, kind of moving on from that, there were more winners than losers, which is a great thing. I mean, you're not having a lot of people stand out as being in a slump or just not having good outings or anything like that. So, before we get to some more pitching talk, let's move to Spencer Jones, the big prospect for the Yankees, who we've talked about quite a bit and obviously are going to talk about for quite some time because he's another one of those outfielders where yes, he's a lefty, but this guy was drawing Shohei Ohtani comparisons on his first spring training game. So the big thing to start was his home run. Electric, beautiful, showing how much power he has. I think the Yankees have a lot of upside with Jones, and they could certainly use another power hitting bat in their lineup.
Yeah, for sure. I think the interesting thing about Jones is he does hit those incredible show-stopping homers. I mean, he was doing it all last season. His trade stock before the deadline was sky high when the Yankees were trying to, I think, especially figure out their third base situation. But I mean, he's just not only is his potential big, he's physically a big guy. He's 6'7", just like Aaron Judge, and he hits some crazy long home runs. Although I think it's worth mentioning, and it's what everyone will mention, is that he strikes out almost just as much.
Mm-hmm.
He followed that home run up with 2 strikeouts and in his next 2 at bats. And what I think is interesting about Jones is I can think of another Yankees player who strikes out a lot, doesn't get on base very much, and is able to hit massive home runs. And it's Anthony Volpe, unfortunately. The guy hit 19 homers last year, which is pretty damn solid, but he strikes out so much. And so I think it's interesting to see how there's sort of a mixed reaction of, is Jones legit? Is this power going to continue as he works his way through the minor league system, hopefully getting up to a debut? He's pretty young. Or is the inconsistency going to be more of a problem? I mean, I think you see when he goes to bat, his stance changes a lot. I think that a lot of that has to do with not having necessarily played all the way through all those levels. I believe he was in the AAA last season, but even then, I've heard in interviews players talking about how once you start getting up through to the AAA, that's when it starts to feel serious. And I think that there is still a lot of work to be done with Jones and his hitting because it's just so inconsistent. And I don't think that the Yankees want that in the majors, especially if, God forbid somebody gets injured and they have to have a call up, or maybe two people get injured and they've got Dominguez in at right field, and then they're like, we're going to call up Jones for center field, and he can't hit consistently. I think that the tables would turn on him really quickly, but at the same time, the play is just so impressive.
He ended up striking out 109 times in 263 at bats. So certainly not ideal. In his last 2 years, he has 379 strikeouts and about doing some quick math, over 900, like 930-ish at bats or so, give or take. 482 in 2024 and 438 in 2025. But yeah, other than his home run, he was 1 of 3 in that game. And well, the other 2 times were a strikeout. And then you look today when he reappeared in the lineup, they're doing like that every other day approach with him where you miss a game, you play a game, miss a game, play a game. He was 0 for 2 today with 2 strikeouts, but he did draw a walk. So, I mean, a little bit of positive there. But I think overall, the biggest key with Jones is not rushing him, because if they bring him up too soon, they're just going to hurt him so much more. And with a top prospect like that, that's the last thing you can be doing. Yes, he can hit. I mean, you're looking at his numbers. He played 49 games in AA last year where he hit 16 homers, and then he played the 67 games in AAA where he hit 19 homers. So the power's there. We're not worried about the power. We're worried about the consistency, which has been a big thing. He's able to steal bases. He stole 29 bases last year, so he's got some speed as well. Seems like he kind of has everything the Yankees want. He just needs to put it all together at this point, which is the big key.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think that for a player like Jones, for any player really, I mean, other players have talked about this. Playing for the Yankees in particular can be a tough gig. It's, crowds with a lot of expectations. It's, the uniform with all the years of history. I think there's a lot of pressure put on you. There's a lot of pressure put on you when you're in the majors at all. And then to be a Yankee in particular, I think comes with almost a lot of baggage that I think that if the Yankees can avoid putting that on a younger player who is trying to, like you said, put it all together, I think that'd be great. And I mean, they have their starting outfielders unless something happens. So I think that they have the time to see what Jones can do if he can be more consistent and if he can make the adjustments that he says he's trying to make. I mean, he had a few interviews where he was talking about all the work he was doing in the off season, and I don't doubt that he was doing it. So it would be good to see that all come together, and hopefully we see his debut because he's done amazing. I think that would be great. I think that makes the Yankees an absolutely lethal team. If you have that kid, Judge, Bellinger, Stanton, it's just insane hitter after insane hitter after insane hitter. And I don't think that there are many pitchers in the league that are going to be able to keep up with that.
No, absolutely not. I agree 100%. So Jones, another one we'll keep an eye on. I didn't think he was worth putting in either list, biggest winner, bigger loser, but kind of an honorable mention in a way, because like I said, it goes both ways. You got the power, but you got the strikeouts, which have been the big thing the whole time everyone wants to talk about. And it's still a talking point through the first 4 spring training games. So last little bit we wanted to talk about here on this episode was the Yankees relief pitching. Again, they've looked pretty good in spring training so far, but it's still a question of where they're going to be in the regular season, where they're going to be once late March, early April comes around. And then obviously you're looking at August, September, October, like the late months when things really matter. Where is the Yankee squad going to be? Let's start with the 2 pitchers we've seen so far in spring training. Jake Bird is a guy that, again, played 3 games with the Yankees last year. He was traded at the deadline, played 3 games, moved to the minors, never seen again, basically. So he was one of those names who was working on some things in the offseason. He only played 1 game so far in spring training, threw an inning, gave up 1 hit, but struck out a batter. So solid performance from Bird. And then Bednar, obviously, who is just taken over this team in a very, very quick amount of time. He got credit for a hold actually on the game on the 21st and then threw an inning, gave up a walk, but didn't give up any hits or anything like that. So, Delilah, those two names in particular, we'll start with them and just kind of what you've seen from them so far and what Yankees fans could expect moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in my opinion, I think that the Yankees bullpen is sort of an underaddressed issue for them. Last season, they were having some pretty tough times. Devin Williams was blowing game after game after game. They benched him for Luke Weaver. Weaver did really well. He gets hurt. He misses a month where they put Williams back in and then start doing this instead of having you pitch 2.5 innings, everyone just gets one strategy. That worked okay. Weaver came back, and it was still just really okay. And I think really dismal for Yankees fans to see, a team that can put up so many runs as they can lose a game due to relief pitching. So that's when they decided to bring in Bednar, Duvall, and Bird. Now they still have Bednar, who, I mean, I'm a huge fan of. He's a Pittsburgh native, and he's a great pitcher. Duvall, pretty good. And like you said, Bird only really got 3 chances. I mean, I think that at the end of those 3 chances, his ERA was like 27 because he just had some awful innings. So this year they've lost Weaver and Williams, both of whom have gone to the Mets. And I don't necessarily think that either of those guys are going to get better, but I think it's an underaddressed position for them because last season you couldn't get it done with the guys that you had plus Weaver and Williams. You now didn't add anyone or anyone really of note.
Mhm.
And you are hoping and praying that nothing happens to Bednar. I mean, the Pirates sent him to the AAA last season because at the beginning of the year he was awful, and he bounced back. Like I said, I am really pro Bednar. I think he's an amazing pitcher. Um, but I would be concerned if I'm the Yankees. It would be a position where I'm like, okay, what's going to happen? I think Bird really wants to get back. He had a whole interview where he was talking about how he felt terrible about the performance that he did last season, which how could you not?
Mhm.
But there's no way that that's what he wanted to do and how much he wanted to get better. Boone has said some really great things about him, so I think that he could potentially make it back to be slotted into the bullpen full time if it keeps going well. Like you said, he had pretty good outing this weekend, warming up in spring training, but I sort of foresee it being the same issue this year. They don't really address the issue early on in the season. They struggle and then they make some trades at the deadline. For whom, I don't really know. But I do think that for all of the talk that people have had about needing an outfielder before Bellinger re-signed or trying to get another starting pitcher, there hasn't been enough, in my opinion, talk about what they could do to make the bullpen stronger.
I think one of the biggest things with the bullpen aspect is you can only move so many starting pitchers to like a bullpen role to eat those middle innings. And if you're going to have a pitcher, say, go 4 innings to start a game, you would love to have a guy who's going to throw innings 5, 6, and 7, eat up those innings, but you still need a closer. And being a closer and being a pitcher moved to the bullpen and that back end is two completely different things. And I mean, Edwin Diaz was like the only major name on the market this year, closer wise. And obviously, the Yankees weren't paying for him. You can't compete with the Dodgers. Like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who you are. The Dodgers can get whoever they want, basically, whenever they want. They did it with Kyle Tucker, too. So if let the Dodgers overpay for some of these other players and go out and find someone else. I think that's going to be one of the big topics throughout this year is who kind of flies under the radar, who is going to be a cheap trade piece they could acquire. And this could be in the middle of April. This could be right before the deadline. This could be something that happens at the most unexpected time. But I think the Yankees just need to strike while the iron's hot. If there's someone who is pitching lights out and is getting a ton of saves and a team is either selling or in a position where they have just a surplus of closing pitchers, or which not many teams have, but you never know at the end of the day. I think that's kind of where things are going to get interesting. And I mean, look today, like these Yankees struck out 13 batters. So they just lit up Bubba Chandler offensively. He gave up 4 runs in that inning, and then their pitching came in and was solid overall. The problem is a lot of the pitchers that we're throwing aren't names that are already relievers, and you're playing against the Pirates minor leaguers as well. So it's kind of one of those things where, sure, yeah, Ben Hess, 5 strikeouts in 3 innings. That's awesome. But Ben Hess isn't going to be a closer for the Yankees in the middle of the year. So I think that's kind of the overall thing is we haven't seen Camilo Duvall yet, which is another one of those pitchers who should be in a role to step up. We wanted to mention him in this too. But yeah, overall, it's just kind of tough to assess where the bullpen's at this point in time. But I think it still is a big glaring issue that, like you said, has flown under the radar.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely potential upside. I think maybe my opinion on it is a little cynical. Like, they could have the best bullpen in the league. Like, maybe these guys will just completely shut down every batter that stands against them. But I think it's an interesting problem that we'll have to wait and see. In my opinion, even broadly, the Yankees are a wait and see team. I think in the 2024 offseason, they had some more moves, but I feel like they're more of a deadline team. I think they get real aggressive. They'll take big swings when it's end of July and not so much when it's end of February. I think that they like to sort of see how things play out. And I mean, I'm certainly curious to see how things play out, but yeah, the home runs mean nothing if your relievers are going to give up, 5 runs in the seventh inning. And it'll be a real place to watch, in my opinion, for the Yankees.
I think it's just this team. We talked about it in the first episode. You get so hung up on a mentality of you want to run it back. You want to bring the same guys back. Yes, you needed to bring Cody Bellinger back. Of course, sure, you got Ryan Weathers. Great. Ryan Weathers still isn't a closer. So you've addressed your need of an outfielder. You addressed your need of a pitcher. But the question now is going to be how does this team actually look when it matters? Because we're only 4 spring training games in. Obviously, we'll be back Thursday. We'll be talking about what's happened in these next few games. But these are still issues we're looking at moving ahead to the regular season, which at this point is just about a month away. So the Yankees don't have a lot of time to be making any more moves. I mean, you're looking at, I think it was the Guardians just picked up Rhys Hoskins, but they gave him a minor league deal. So there's still a couple of names floating out there, but pitching wise, it's a little sketchy. It's a little iffy at this point in time. But I think there's still a lot of positives from spring training so far. And kind of as we get to closing this episode out, I was just going to ask you if there's anyone else you're looking forward to through these next couple of games, maybe we haven't seen, or if there's any pitching wise, hitting wise, anyone maybe you want to see step up, anyone you're looking forward to, because again, the World Baseball Classic's right around the corner. So we're kind of at a point in time where some of the top names might take a step back, and then a few more of these minor leaguers have the chance to go out and prove themselves.
Yeah, maybe not necessarily a minor leaguer, but I would like to see more from Dominguez. I think that there's been a lot of conversation ever since Bellinger was re-signed about where he can slot in. Obviously, he isn't a minor leaguer. He has been playing in the big leagues and with relative success. He's not the best player in the world. He's certainly not the what he was hyped up to be as a prospect, but he's pretty
Mhm.
solid. So I think, even Boone said that he could get more reps if they option him down to AAA, which I don't necessarily know that they will do. But I would like to see more of what he can do, and I'm curious to see if his production sort of ramps up because of that pressure. He had some not amazing fielding, I believe, on Friday. And I say this because I saw a hilarious TikTok of a Yankees fan saying, Yankees baseball is back. We got Jason Dominguez making errors already, which really cracked me up just because it was a very funny voice that the guy was doing.
Yeah.
But I kind of agree. I want to see what Dominguez can do. Do you have an answer for the same question?
I was kind of looking at a guy they just gave a contract to not too long ago, Paul DeJong. Obviously, he's their infielder who's kind of that more of like a utility man, but he's been solid so far in spring training. That was one of those like risk-free contracts, right? Like it's not a minor leaguer who's not proven themselves. It's not a major leaguer who's going to be in the lineup every day, but kind of just an under the radar like utility guy that it's like, hey, like let's keep an eye on him. We gave him a minor league contract for a reason. He's not going to break the bank, obviously. He's not going to be some ground shattering transaction where everyone's going to go crazy and act like it's the best move in the world. But I think he's kind of one of those names that I did want to bring up when I was looking at it. But I mean, yeah, you're obviously Dominguez. We will mention him because he had one hit in the game today, and it was for an RBI. So if you're going to hit
That's
250 with
true.
an RBI, not bad. So think he's definitely a good name to bring up as we look. George Lombard has struggled a bit so far, but again, he's not ready to be in the big leagues, to be completely honest, but that's okay, right? That's not an issue. You can be the top prospect and get another 50, 100 games in AAA before you move up. So I think overall, everyone has done their part other than Duke Ellis, not to catch another stray, but like, I was looking at the lineup again for today, and it's just there's so many glaring issues, and just seeing him at the bottom, it was not one of the highlights to say the least. But overall, yeah, that's kind of where we're at. I mean, let's take a look. Yankees, couple more games coming up, obviously, before we're back at it recording on Thursday. They'll be playing at Toronto, and then they will host Washington. And then Thursday's game is against the Atlanta Braves. So just kind of all over the place down here in Florida, but good stuff all around. Delilah, didn't know if you had any final closing marks or comments or anything as we wrap this one up.
Yeah, I mean, like we've said, it's only the first few games of only spring training. I mean, you see some wacky lineups in there, so it's not time to panic just because they lost a couple spring training games. And I'll be really excited to talk about the next three on Thursday.
We'll be back for sure Thursday. Make sure to subscribe, like the video, all of that good stuff. We'll hopefully be on Spotify and get to the audio soon. But for now, here we are at YouTube, loving every single second of it. Thank you all for listening. Here to episode 2, the February 23rd edition of All Yankees Talk.
All right. Bye, Jordan.
Bye.